here again with you all. Uh, as I said during my previous presentation, we are in the process of forming the guideline for our society. We have already launched the guideline last December, as I told you before. We have launched the content of the guideline. So it's a draft content which was launched. See, before you start writing any books or scripting anything, you need to have a content. So we have taken almost that year journey to form this content, made in India, by India, and what we want to achieve is with experts from the globe. So my main idea of forming this guideline, tomorrow we want to empower every individual with a form of procedure which will govern the way we work. So IFFA has taken this initiative to form this guideline. At the same time, it is not done by few people. It is done by all the stakeholders from the industry jointly. Then, not only that, today is the first day we are going to debate on the first 2 chapters. So this guideline consists total 9 chapters. Talk about as much as possible everything you want to know about facade. Not only that, this also gives you a tool to monitor how a facade can be done in India properly. We spoke about fire safety before. This guideline will exactly tell which material you can use. So this guideline will be part of the contract in future. That's our target. However, without engaging the stakeholders, we will not be able to achieve that. So what we have decided is, when we form this chapter, we take topics which we feel it requires guidance. When I say guidance, guidance from the experts, guidance from public, guidance from whoever is involved. So today we have these distinguished panelists. They are the best in their field. To start with, Mr. Stewart, he comes with a big experience behind him, where he has done a lot of projects on his own. He executed, seen various buildings in his career. He has done few in India, but mostly abroad. Mr. Gopal, he is always in India, and he has the amount of experience what he got in this industry is commendable. Next is Lars. He spoke, you have seen him talking, and you have listened to his grievance as well this morning. However, he is also there. Kamlesh was there. So Kamlesh is from the facade contractor community, where he has done wonderful buildings. You can see those buildings. So morning, whoever said there is no facade contractor, please turn your head, look back. You see those wonderful buildings. It is built by us here. So don't underestimate the community. Next is Mr. Niranjan. He is a very special man for today for me, because today the first 2 chapters we are going to talk about is contracts. So he carries contract with him for his career. He worked in Singapore. Throughout his life, he has been reading only contracts. So thank you all for your time and to be here in the panel. To go with the topics, I will flash them in the screen as well so we can see it. See, the first 2 chapters talk about general conditions of contract. How many contractors are there in front of me here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, say roughly 10 of you. Do you all know every contract you receive you sign on this. But I believe if you would have gone back to your office and you take the document, not all the document will talk the same language. You can check it. It's nothing to do with the client, nothing to do with the project. Somehow it happened. That is the first mistake. So we have to correct it. So the general conditions, we have definitions and abbreviation, which we all know. How you interpret the contract, we all know. When you go down the line, I have highlighted business ethics and compliance with laws. Because for any contract to be enforced, this is mandatory. Without having a law, without having an ethics, and there is no point for us to form a guideline. So how we can form this guideline where we will be able to put a law for ourselves. Because believing in government, yes, it will happen, but I don't know when it will happen. But the idea is we ourselves set the law, say, okay, I have to follow this is the way I go. So the question is, if there is a dispute arises in a contract during execution, knowing the Indian condition very well, we know if you go to court here, it will take ages. Sometimes it can get over if you have money within a week. But for this contract to be enforced, we need a resolution mechanism. What is the best way forward would you recommend for our Indian context? I start with Niranjan. You can take the mic.
Thank you, Salam. Good evening, everybody. The best model, what I feel, basically, you will have to have a panel which comprises of something you intend to plan, an authority from that, and two important bodies in that. Panelists should be a QS who runs through the entire project, has to be part of it, and the facade consultant who knows the ins and outs of the design has to be part of it. I see the dispute, at all comes on cost, time, or quality issues. If the design is in the scope of the contractor, yes, there could be something from the design too. So I feel, these two important panelists who are there, who's been chaired by some of a powerful authority, can be a good consortium to see that this dispute resolution at a first level handled before it gets escalated perhaps to the level of an arbitration.
Do you think it is good enough for us to say we form a committee India-wide with all the stakeholders, maybe a 5-member committee or 10-member committee, which can refer it? Because going to court in India, it's not what we have to do. And I don't believe all the problems which may crop up, maybe major of the problems may crop up, doesn't need to go to that extent. So your advice is form a committee.
Make it, subjective again, make it part of the contract. In general, the practice is basically, if you take the FIDIC form of contract, which is quite widely used in India nowadays, there will be a party which will be appointed by the contractor, the other party will be from the employer, and the chairperson will be who is mutually agreed by these two, or the highest authority who is the chairman of the FIDIC committee. None of these problems, go to that level, basically, if you see. So we could have some localized solution wherein we have such small committees who understands the depth of the issue. I'm not seeing a problem coming anywhere beyond time, cost, and quality, and the quality. So if these three experts could know what that project is all about, they would be able to resolve that, and the issues never escalated to the next level. The project doesn't suffer at all. That's my opinion.
Mr. Gopal, what is your opinion?
Good evening, all. I feel, yeah, I go in line with what my friend said here. Basically, I am talking on behalf of developers. No developer will want, first of all, a conflict to remain for long because it's going to hit him. If the project is to happen complete, yeah, he has to complete the project only and then only sit for the next business. So he will want it resolved. So the committee should be the developer represented, the architect who visualized this, and probably a representative from the committee, the core what you are looking at, a case specific one which should sit with the contractor also as a party, the four of them, the architect, the facade consultant who was represented through this body, and the client sitting in with the contractor. The contractor should be made to be a party to that, to represent himself. Largely, I think the problems are resolved when they meet. So 9 out of 10, the contractor and the client sitting in itself. I don't see too many instances where it has gone beyond itself. If you say, what if it goes, I think one represented by this body and one represented by the architect, I think the four of them sitting together, any conflict, I am feeling that it can be resolved. It should be a case-specific one. The moment you have a unilateral body which is sitting there saying that I don't have work, why don't you guys come to me? Don't even give the vision that there is somewhere to go for a problem resolution. The best case scenario is don't have problem.
Yes.
Let's not show a place that there is a place where we can go and make a case. So let's keep it as bare minimum. If it goes beyond that, this is the body we should look for. I told his line of thinking on.
Thank you, Ben. I agree because India is, I always believe, land of relationship. That's why we are strong. As both of them pointed out, you step outside India, it's a different story. But in India, yes, we always believe in relationship. That's why we still survive, despite facing all these problems. So this, we have to address it sensitively. So I would rather say, take up the recommendation that if any dispute arise, we should set a committee forming with all the stakeholders and go forward. So I conclude with that. Now, coming back to the next question, how to ensure ethics of business can be maintained in execution of contract? That's a question. And when I talk about ethics in business, most of the time we see that there is a big widening gap is created now. The confidence level is dropping and the trustworthiness of our deliverables are dropping. So, Lars, if I ask you this question, how we can bridge this gap by this document?
Well, it's a bit funny that in the end that answer goes back to what we just discussed, because allow me to pick that together. Besides the fact that you need to monitor these stress components in contracting business, what is obvious in that market right now is that we are just facing tremendous more later on execution problems than in other markets. And this is not related for leaking knowledge or don't knowing what has to be done. It is what we experienced. It is more related to that things get monitored actually too late. And to give you an example, we had a major project in India where when we came on board to approve drawings and to get things going, the full bunch of material has been extruded before. And then we were appointed to monitor the execution. So we did approvals and we did reports on site, which mainly had been there to fill storages of documents, but there was never any change on that. So if you think about ethics on that, and if you think about how you can reduce these things, I think by selecting a main contractor, a fabricator, a consultant, I see myself there on board, we have to have a certain confidence of our client that when we are judging about something, that is done ethical in the interest of himself, that we would like to avoid a problem to increase later on because the things go to court related to financial tremendous things and not on minor changes on designs. And if that would happen earlier, we probably could avoid all that. So selecting in bigger trust people and following these advice by taking it serious is important. That means that need to start earlier, that the time pressure on the job did not increase to a level that the advice is getting ignored. That is my experience here.
So, if I understood you correctly, to set the things right, early start in the project and involving everybody at earlier stage will be a solution.
We all start with best ethics and best intentions, but pressure finally is going to a situation where just as a regular human factor, things get lost. You don't have the time to fine-tune that. The pressure is getting big, commercial pressure is getting big, and it is at least easier to keep these things in place if we have a reasonable time on fine-tuning all the things in the end, in the interest of our client.
Steve, do you share the same, or do you have any opinion on this?
Is it on?
Yep.
Yeah. I think probably the first step is to minimize disputes and to introduce ethics into a contract, is to make sure that the contract is equable. In other words, it is fair to both parties. Now, I've been working with contracts in India for the last 15 years, and there is an improvement in contracts, but there are still many contracts around that are not equable. They can be extremely one-sided. The client can do anything he wants. The contractor's got to do exactly what he told, and he can't claim any more money for it. It can't take any longer. They're extremely one-sided. Now, in law, those are actually illegal, but they still operate because nobody wants to go to court anyway in India, as you said. So I think the first thing is to start by a contract which is fair to both and equal to both parties. In the UK, for instance, it is not a legal contract to have a penalty clause without a bonus clause, because you've got to balance both sides of the equation. Now, I haven't seen that in India yet. I'm not saying it's not here, but I haven't seen it. But the first thing is, as I say, to make sure that each party feels that they are being treated fairly. And as was mentioned, there is a lack of confidence at the moment, definitely. Confidence is reducing at the moment rather than increasing. Now, I think there are companies who are dealing very ethically with their contractors. That is certainly not always the case. Part of it is in payments. I think that a lot of the disputes come out of delayed payments, lack of agreement to quite fair and rational requests for additional payment because of some change. And so, again, then you go back to the dispute mechanisms that we've talked about. And one of the things that I don't see in India, and I think would be a good idea once you get to a dispute, in the UK there is an institute of arbiters. Now, I don't know whether there's such a body or something similar to that in India, but there are courses which you can take, people in the industry can take, which are quite short courses, but they then are trained and qualified arbiters, and they ideally could be the third party in the sort of the various different panels, because at the moment most people are not really qualified to be an arbiter or an arbitrator. So again, that's another thing I think that could be extremely useful.
This change, no, Niranjan, we are in the industry now 30 years here, I believe, and we do not even have a base contract. And you see the constraints we have. One side, because of our softness, maybe it's not letting us to do it. So anyway, we continue with the topic. The next one is liquidated damages. Okay. I never heard in India, maybe Mr. Gopal can correct me if I'm wrong, that client imposing a LD on anybody. But in my career, I've gone through 4 times outside India because it's normal. As Stuart pointed out, yes, LD clause comes with a bonus clause. Don't you think, see, in a lunch I was debating, that police, what they say, you don't wear safety belt, you pay 100 rupees. The safety belt is for our safety. But most of the time when I ask people, when I sit with somebody when they wear safety, hey, why are you wearing? Oh, no, I have to pay 100 rupees. That's number one. So a penalty makes him to wear it, but not the safety. I believe if anything to be materialize, we have to have both these first. We need to have a early. At the same time, we have to have a bonus class. If the guy really perform, this will encourage the industry. Mr. Gopal, do you think it's a good idea to have this and enforce it in the contract?
Yeah, of course. Now the time since being the essence, everybody is running.
Yes.
Not a bad idea to have that, but at the same time, like you said, the relationships are done with between the client and the contractor. It is more, both of them think on day one that this is going to be a successful venture for both of us. When that mindset is there and both of them, when they are wanting to do it, I feel the less and less paperwork you keep it, the better it is, because each one should not take shelter under one paper. It is good to have a bonus class to run faster than what is written there. But at the same time, something should not be a deterrent in that paper, which should not be read by words. It's more by the spirit of it you should go through. If
Yeah,
if there is one large project, it's a good idea to have it, to make it happen in few months.
We are forming this guideline, and this is going to guide them through. See, nobody who enters a job with an idea that I'm going to get penalized. But, as I said, the police came with a rule. They put banners everywhere. Nobody started following. And then when they say, I collect 100 rupees, it's more than 100 rupees when they stop and catch you. Then people started wearing it. So I believe, this will encourage the industry in both ways. Going back to feeding, yes, we need to cap it. That's what we want to do. What do you think should be a weekly and a maximum?
Selvam, something which need to be borne in mind first is that the delay damage is different from a penalty incentivized options. Delay damage is a quantified, a measured loss what an employer would undergo, and that's been accepted by the contractor on the day when he starts the work. So we call it a quantum merit in terms of
it's a general damage you
terms.
call it.
Correct. So you quantify that loss. So that's not the case with penalty. A penalty is something that which is not very clearly defined, if you see, and it has a lot of loopholes, and I see exploitation of it happening with people who are not experts in handling it. With the scenario what we have, we do not have an arbitration council in India so very strong. We do not have a quantity surveying body in India. Yes, we do have, but not so very strong as Europe or other developed countries has. So I think it's more wise. We have a delay damage inside than a penalty and an incentive. And I find I have my own opinion on the incentivization. I have not seen a project happening before the defined timelines, or a trade contractor finishing his job well before the timelines to even enjoy this. That's
So are we trying to say that we should not have this liquidated damages clause at all in the contract? But every day we sign.
No,
But for me, the main thing is in this guideline, we need to, publish it. See, we read Bhagavad Gita, Bible, Quran, yes, but how much we follow there? But that's there, but we believe in it. So we have to believe in something. Following is something which is natural. But for me, the main thing is we have to have something. See, today we are talking about Indian context. Now we have people coming from abroad developing projects here. And you have gone through that. Those clients, when they come in, they come with daily penalty clause. So if this guideline doesn't say a penalty clause, then it will be, then we have to put it project-wise, or maybe client-wise. Can we do that? Can I leave it open to say subjective to the contract we sign? Because we need to write it and leave it there. And tomorrow when client engages you, it's up to the client whether they want to put it. Can we do that way?
Selvan, in that aspect, allow me to say something. I have to say that whenever we can go through it, we in our specification as a base of the contractual document for the facade contractor, reject normally, I would not say against our client, but we try to explain him that we cannot implement in the contract of a facade specification and a facade supplier a schedule of execution time for design and installation if the client is not willing or the situation is not clarified what would be the execution schedule of the main contractor. What I would suggest is to reduce these conflicts later on is whenever you would like, and you have to actually implement a timeline for the execution of a facade, you have to come to a consent with your client and the main contractor that part of the submission is a program of the main contractor. If not, you will never be able to handle those conflicts later on when it goes back and forth, why we could not start, why we could not. You need to find a base for that. So approval times, design submissions, main contractor program, if you want to handle those issues, there is a bigger line of expectations you have to give to the hand of the fabricator to finally really stay in that program, or to advise early enough that other things go wrong. That is very important.
So Jawar, Kamlesh, if I come to you. I mean, you've been in contracting for so many years now. I don't think you would have gone through these liquidated damages or not, I have known. But as they speak, I believe we should leave it project-wise and just remove this class completely away from this for time being. Maybe next year or a year later when the things get better, can we add it? What do you think?
No, I agree with what Gopal Saab was mentioning, that the first thing and the foremost thing when a contractor or a developer, when they meet or when we are called is, there is a big thing called as a project which is at stake. So the stake of the client is a much bigger issue than compared to anything else. Probably we may be at times a 2% or a 5% of the total stake, what they have got into it. So as he has rightly said, that it is the project interest which should be looked at more than anything else. Hundreds of reasons can attribute to a delay, and it should not be a paperwork, just people doing paperwork. Today it was to be done, it is not done, or tomorrow it was to be done, it is not done. It is all about a teamwork wherein everybody sits across the table and takes decisions. I think the whole problem lies in taking the decisions, rather than making anybody responsible, be it the contractor or be it anybody. It is more important if the decisions are being taken timely and consensuously. That makes all the deliverables more practical, and that is the approach that one has to take rather than looking at all this penalties or damages or certain things.
See, I believe we are still talking about the soft corner of us ourselves in India. I don't deny that. But trust me, sir, today you step out of India, you have to go through this. Don't you think we have to practice it at least? See, we put ourselves in a confined room and we say, this is the world I want to live in. Yes, fantastic. Are we looking at only developing India?
No, again,
this is the only industry I feel. This is the only industry I feel.
No, let us understand where does the disputes arise from. The disputes arise from the fact that the decisions are not being taken on time. Let's understand the whole fact is. So the whole emphasis what I'm making over here is, since it's a big teamwork, wherein everybody, the client, the architect, the main contractor, the fabricator, everybody is installed. So rather than getting into the next mode of dispute, I would rather say that sit across the table, have the decisions on time. You would still be running at that
that's what I'm saying. I agree with you all for an Indian context. Yes, this is what we believe. This is what we've been living for ages. My question to you is, today you started working abroad. Okay. When you step out of India, this all implies every day counts, that they penalize you.
Don't you think it is good for us to start learning? See, today, it's shameful for us. This is the only industry which cannot work outside India. And nobody respects our product. But the world respects India for our knowledge. And this industry, don't underestimate. We have the amount of knowledge what we have is unbelievable. And today, anybody comes from outside from India, like we listen to Lars, he is right. They don't see us. They just see us, a piece of something. If we do not practice this, it is going to be tough for us. For us, yes. Can I go and say proudly, hey, I am an Indian company, I want to do this project in Middle East. Try it. Why not? We go out to Singapore and say, hey, I am an Indian company, can I sell a window for you? Why not? Chinese are doing. Chinese are everywhere. How we are bad. But Chinese, what they did, they follow. Every Chinese company you enter in, they have 10 legal people inside because they know they have to get out of the country. So we need to come to a consensus. We have to practice it. If we decide that we are not going to work outside India, fantastic. But we need to practice. So we need to have something in there we will come up where we have to educate ourselves. Otherwise, we will just be there. That's it. We don't grow. The next question. Risk in insurance, yes, we will deal later. Resident engineer. That's a term which is used everywhere around the world. Even sometimes in India, I used to see this. Unlike in civil structure, for civil structure, we had a notified engineer who signs each and every document, the calculation, the drawings, and he takes honors. Similarly, when an architect signs the drawing, he takes honors. But in facade, where it lies, I can't do it. See, if I step outside again, when I go over abroad, the facade consultants, not most of the case, sometimes they take the lead. Or the structural consultants, they used to take the lead to vet the contractors' engineering and design, certify. But here, this is the drawback we have. So, what we can do to avoid this? I have given option A, B, C, D. One, can we ask the structural engineer and nominate him or tell him, hey, you are in charge for facade engineering, at least. Or the facade consultant, or the architect engineer, or the architect, or a third-party certified engineer. Out of these A, B, C, D, which you think will be better for us? So that we have a validity. Today, trust again. Trust is okay, but we need a validity. Somebody have to validate. So whom do you think will be a better person whom we can approach so that we get notified, or our calculation gets certified?
See, this concept of this facade consultant itself is little new to the country, I will say. Not all the projects had a facade consultant. I'll just say my experience of having done some 170 jobs in Bangalore. I may have to list about 10 where we had consultants coming into the picture. Who was the guy who was doing this job was largely the architect. Oh, gone are the days the buildings have got the skin itself as the glass, and the facade consultant has come into being, and he is essential part of this design process. I think the projects where there is a facade consultant, I think he should be given that due role of doing this job. In case the job is not as big that it did not demand a facade consultant to be on board on that small job, I think there should be a third party, like a person nominated from the association, calling them. This is a list of people to whom you can go for such requirements of checking on the spec and getting over the rest of the process. I think there should be a list published by your association which should say, you can pick one from here, and for this small job you may not need to necessarily have a facade consultant, but you can go to him for his guidance. I think that's the way to go about.
That's good. Now, coming to Lars. Lars, you have to answer this. Okay. As a facade consultant,
Yeah,
can you take the honors?
Yeah, from my experience, I would normally recommend that after the tender stage, any job where people believe that it is good for the job, a third-party consultant is coming on board. Because I just can tell you from my experience that third party is not only there to secure the job, with open eyes in the market, some mismatch happening where clients pay for a product which is getting specified, and in the end it is not getting delivered because there's a certain consensus between the contractor and some other people involved in the execution that less is bringing some benefit in some pockets. So the third-party consultant, and now it is getting important, being appointed and paid by the client, is securing that things get executed as per design document. That means when we do these kind of third-party jobs, it is not our task to judge on the design or to judge on the daylight, or we purely read the tender document and we purely compare the design execution documents, shop drawings and all that, and the design on site against the contractual obligation. And that is something what is avoiding conflicts. The only problem in the Middle East, for example, is that clients there never understood that it is a mistake to pay the third party through the main contractor. They want that for a certain responsibility wrapped into one hand, where I would suggest doing that like it is done everywhere in Europe. The third party is appointed by the client, securing his interest, and we normally say whoever is ordering the capella is saying what music has to be played, and therefore I would recommend that clients pay for that direct. But install a third party who is controlling either the facade consultant of the design team or the main contractor or wherever these specialists are appointed, but look on the client side for the final execution for somebody balancing those interests.
See, because today, no, that you can't call it policing, but because of that, a lot of time you see things are taken for granted. I believe appointing a third party, will be the best solution to going forward. Yeah, it's shown 0 minutes, so I need to take the next question. Sorry, Niranjan. We have only 2 more questions. I'll go. I skip one and then I'll go the other one. We spoke about the third-party accreditation. I'll leave that question. So the sensitive topic, yes, from morning we have been discussing about everybody payment. We need to put certain conditions in the document where, okay, this is the payment term, what is requested or required for a smooth flow of a project. That's a recommendation we would like to give. But however, project to project, it can differ between the client and the contractor. We are not up to that. But in general, after having long discussion with everybody, we started last year asking this question. Everybody had a consensus to say we have to work in a secured payment model, either in the form of ALC or either in form of something secured, so that this industry can be lifted up. So what do you think a mode of payment which can be respected, where everybody can bring this industry up?
Firstly, the client actually should think of having one single contractor for facade. They should leave the options of procuring the material themselves and having the stone cladding to another agency and go for other fixtures with others. Practically, if you see, if they see that are they saving cost over there, they may save, but at the end of the day, what happens is you cannot structure something and make someone responsible for a product. So what I see basically is that this question connects to that. In a case, if you have a procurement happening, then you have an LC and he runs behind that as well. It is not one single product. The glass has to come, the frames has to come from another place. It will not reach the site, it goes to the factory, but still the client has to make the payment in assumption that the material has reached them. Okay, there are certain evidences provided, and there are disputes arised over there, which I have seen on some fake billing. These things can be totally avoided. Do your due diligence, have a right contractor on board, and see that you fix up the payment terms. I was seeing you are almost bombarding Kamlesh when you are saying that, you're asking him when you're going out of India, will you not consider all this? I'm saying, this is not just to do with just contractor. There is a total change in the mindset required basically by all stakeholders. Payments are something, which is very, very critical, which Stuart touched while he was discussing. I'm seeing basically payment is the only obligation a client fulfills in the contract. It's after all that he does. The rest is all done by the contractors basically to deliver. So I think this has to have sort of a uniform reach basically between these two parties. Again, adding up to, you didn't give me a chance basically on the previous question. I just wanted to club that up now. The options what you put across with a structural engineer or any other agency, I don't think that would work in India, and you know that. In developed countries like Singapore, I have seen a structural consultant stays throughout the project. If there is a flaw in the design, if something goes wrong, he cannot practice for his life. The law supports that there. In Indian system, unless you get something firmed up, perhaps your association could do that. You can force basically certain things to happen so that the employer is protected basically of having right stakeholders and who are very well committed. And coming to the point what Lars was saying, yes, I agree. There should be a clerk of work, what we call. Someone touched the point today morning too in the discussions. You need a clerk of work basically from an expert, be it a facade consultant or maybe a third party. And you need a clerk of works for a facade, because the facade goes as a great interface, with many trades inside, if it is a hotel or a hospital or an IT park.
Yes, more or less, yes, we touch the sensitive topic, we'll keep on going. But
allow me to say something to payments. That's my favorite one.
I think you said so much this morning.
No, but
Yeah.
in the presentation I stated something for what we are facing in the market, but in the end I have to say, by being a facade consultant and by discussing an association, for example, payment terms get mainly spoiled by ourselves. Because I have to say, if you would lock any facade consultant in that market into a room and ask them what is painful for them, they may come up with payment terms. The question is, why are we signing those bullshit contracts? What would happen if any facade consultant in India agrees that if I'm part of that association, I get that nice thing on my jacket, I agree that we should stick on a monthly payment plan, for example. And then everybody is doing so. What can a client do? Obviously, we have a competition in the full price of the job and all that. But payment terms, if you ask about ethics and what you mentioned perfectly, what is a fair, balanced situation? Is it a fair, balanced situation to ask somebody to execute work and then wait 180 days? But the bigger question is, why did I sign such a contract? So it goes back to ourselves agreeing on a strategy, what we offer together to the market to avoid that this situation is coming into our contract.
Yes, good, and I allow to discuss this further. Yes, Mr. Gopal, last one, because we need to wrap.
Quick one. See, basically, this payment subject, I feel these 2-3 sentences should be taken note of. Any client who is wanting to do a project, you first look at him. He is not putting bank money and he is doing it. He is not generating it out. He is taking it out from somebody else. There is an end customer for him too. As long as the contractor registers what does that client need in stages to make it happen that he also collects the money from the other side. That's where the missing link is. The contractor in a case brings all the glass and dumps it in one corner and says, boss, pay me. And here is the problem that the client is not able to get this money out.
More of cash flow planning.
And the other way around, tons and tons of aluminum required for the job is brought in, not even 10 square foot of glass is brought in. Here is the case where client has promised to his client that the user that he is going to give floor-wise occupation of that, can I have a watertight condition. Here is a case of contractor brought all the aluminum required for the project, he He doesn't have money to bring any square foot of glass to make that one floor happen too. So as long as this is framed at the time when the contract is written very clearly that the client's end customer, what is he looking for in stages, everything cannot be done one shot, everything cannot be paid one shot. As long as you also make sure that the client is getting money out of his own customer to generate that and give it to you, no, half the job done. 9 out of 10 cases, this is the problem. That he is unable to generate money. You have to make sure that he also generates
So we'll
money.
emphasize on more of planning towards
That if
the
you
cash flow and
can
then-
make a paragraph on that on your profile
Guideline.
and make sure that this is adhered to each time a contract is drawn, 10 questions are there asked between the client and the contractor. What is it that we need to be doing? How do you generate your funds? Is this the way you want? That is the way the contractor is expected to do his bar chart and go about the job.
So
I
it's
think
more
this
of
should be
planning
taken
will
care.
resolve this issue. Sorry, what happened is there is an event going to happen here. We have to vacate it by sharp 6. Actually, the screen is behind. Now we have to demolish it, and they will take over the hall at 7 o'clock. So I have to thank you all for your patience, and we've gone through. This guideline, will, these chapters, whatever we have, it will be still discussed. We will be sending to all the stakeholders separately. I would like to thank you all, and I thank the panelists for their honest opinion. And we'll be in touch. We'll keep going, because the end date for this guideline is fixed. It is December 14, sorry. December 14, 2014, it will be launched in Pragati Maidan in a big event. So the deadline is fixed, so now we are running slowly. We are almost there. We'll continue building this with everybody's opinion and your feedback. Thank you all. Thank you once again. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Silvam, and thank you, panelists, and thank you all for attending this World of Facade. Next World of Facade will be in Bombay, 11th of April. Okay, so see you there. And we are running short of time. That's the reason, this note is on behalf of Jack Trade and Fairs. I'm thankful to you for spending the time here. Thank you very much.